it's Jennifer from Flux. Welcome back to part 2 of the Holiday Spruce 12-inch square. As you can see, part 1 was full of texture and variety of stitches with front post double crochets, back post double crochets. We did some puff stitches. We did some single crochets. We did some spike stitches. So we really crammed a lot of instruction into part 1 of the video. Part 2, we're going to start getting some width and some height to our square. Now let me just back up. This is our finished square. So if you haven't watched part 1 of the square, definitely watch that first. You're going to learn how to do rounds 1 through 10 of that square, and we're really incorporating a lot of skills into that square. Part 2, we're going to be working on rounds 11 through 15. I had to look back at that for a minute. So where this tan, I keep calling it buff, but it's tan. Where this tan begins, we're going to be working from here out, okay? So what we want to do is begin round 11. Again, if you missed, if you haven't watched part 1 and you missed part 1, go back to part 1. The link is below and you can learn how to do the beginning part of this square, okay? As you can also see, our square, we've replaced this teal, this mallard color, and let me just grab it for you, this mallard with the sage to give it kind of a different look. To me, it looks sort of like a retro holiday look, and this is more of a bold, kind of has like an alpine folk art feeling. It's really, really pretty, detailed square. Just as a refresher, we're using Red Heart with Love. Today's square will be the tan, the sage, the berry red, and the Aran. If you like this color scheme better, this square was done with the mallard, the tan, the berry red, and the Aran. We're also using a 6mm, let me get this yarn out of the way here. We're also using a 6mm J crochet hook. This is my Furls Odyssey, in case you're wondering. I always get a lot of questions about my hooks. Okay, let's jump right into round 11. Again, if you haven't seen part 1, please be sure to watch that first. Okay, so moving right along with the buff, we're going to tie it into any corner space. This is the same thing we've been doing for the past few rounds. And as you can see, our corners are looking very similar. Okay, we've been working them the same way. So what you want to do is just grab your new yarn, hook it onto that hook. I've already inserted it into the chain 1 space and pull it through. Okay, so just tie that right onto your corner. And then what you want to do is, now let me just zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing here. Reinsert the hook back into that corner space, and then we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Then what we're going to do is work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, and then we're going to chain 1 and then work 3 double crochets all in that same space, and this will get our first corner going. So 1, 2, and 3. Now, like I said, the beginning of this square incorporated a ton of stuff. The last few rounds of the square are, as you can see, they're more to frame the square in, okay? So we're going to be using some real simple stitches and some post stitches like we did earlier. So if you completed this part of the square already, this stuff will seem super duper easy, okay? So all we're going to do for this round is work treble crochets along the sides. So do you remember this chain 1 space that we created in the last round? What we're going to do is work 2 treble crochets in that chain 1 space. So right in that space between the corner and that first stitch that we worked, we're going to work 2 treble crochets. So wrap yarn around hook 2 times like that, insert it into that chain 1 space from the previous round, bring up a loop. You'll have 4 loops on your hook. And let me just zoom in a tiny bit more. There we go. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the next 2 loops. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. This round will really sort of square everything up, okay? You might have a little bit of rippling from it being a circle, working post stitches. It kind of pulls things in. This is really going to kind of straighten our square out a little bit. All right, work a second treble crochet into that chain 1 space. Okay, And then what we're going to do is work a treble crochet into every stitch across. Okay, so every stitch we worked here, we're going to work a treble crochet. We're going to go through this entire thing together. Okay, so go ahead and work a treble crochet into that first stitch. Work a treble crochet into the next stitch. We're going to do this whole side in this first corner together. Work a treble crochet into the next stitch. See, as you can see, we're getting quite a bit of height with this round. Work a treble crochet into the next stitch. Treble crochet into the next stitch. Treble in the next stitch. And in the next stitch, we're just doing this all, whoops, I missed a loop, all the way across. Okay, this is going to not only give us some height pretty quickly, but it's going to straighten things out on our square. It's going to give us a nice crisp edge. Okay, now we still have some fancy stitches up our sleeves to give us a little bit more texture, but it's really going to kind of settle down now with getting, it'll be a lot easier from here on out. Okay. All right, we're coming up to the end here. You want to work a treble crochet into that last stitch of your side here. And then what we're going to do is do what we did earlier. We're going to work 2 treble crochets into that chain 1 space. Okay. So work your first treble crochet in that chain 1 space. Work your second treble crochet in that chain 1 space, and now we're at our next corner. The corners are going to be worked the same way we've been doing them, so we're going to switch to double crochets now. Work 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, turn it if you need to, chain 1, and 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now we'll start down the next side, and that'll be just done the same exact way, but I'll get you started. So work 2 double crochets in that chain 1 space, that chain 1 space in between the corner and those first stitches that you worked. Remember to wrap yarn around hook 2 times when you're doing your trebles. And then in the first stitch and each stitch across. Okay, so I'm going to continue working my treble crochets all the way around, and then we'll rejoin and move on to our next round. We're getting quite a bit of, and as you can see, our square is starting to really kind of straighten out. Okay, all right, I'm going to continue around and then we'll rejoin in just a moment. Just working those last 2 treble crochets of our round in that chain 1 space like we did before. And then what we need to do is join to close the round, count 3 chains up, and close with a slip stitch. Okay, so we are making such wonderful progress on our square. It looks fabulous. Okay, so wrap the yarn around the hook and just pull it through to fasten off. For round 12, I went ahead and tied the new yarn into the corner space, bring up a loop, and then what we're going to do is chain 3. We're going to start this round similarly to a lot of other rounds we've done. Work 2 double crochets in the same space, 1 and 2. Then we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to work 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. The next thing we're going to do before we start down the side here is chain 1. That'll give us a little bit of space here. Then all we need to do, this is a very easy round, is work a back post double crochet in each one of these stitches. So we're going to skip over these 3 double crochets. We're going to go into that very first treble crochet that we did in the previous round, and we're going to work a back post double crochet into each one of these treble crochets from the previous round. Okay, so go ahead and work your back post double crochets. We'll do this whole side together just to kind of walk you through. So just work your back post double crochet all the way across till we get to this next corner. Okay, Now, just as a refresher, you want to wrap yarn around hook coming from the back over top of that post, bring up a loop and come back the way you came. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops, and that's all you do. We did those quite a bit in part 1 of the square, where we worked this kind of raised up circle center, and we incorporated them in some other areas as well. Okay, so we're just working our back post double crochets, and it makes a lot of, we want to kind of continue with our texture that we did in the more complex part of the center of the square when we did part 1 of this square. So we kind of want to mimic some of those same textures, but we're just working simple stitches all the way across. Nothing overly fancy here, just back post double crochet all the way across. Okay, now we're getting towards our next corner here. So looks like I have 2 more trebles to work into. So work your back post double crochet and all those treble crochets across. And then what we need to do before we start working that corner again, we're going to chain 1. So you want to make sure you have a chain 1 at the beginning and the end of each of these sides in between your corners. And then you're going to go into that chain 1 space and work your corner the same way you've been working it before. 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and 3 double crochet. Okay, so just keep doing that all the way around, working your corners the same way and your sides the same way as I just did. If you need to back up, that's totally fine, but don't forget to do your chain 1 before you begin working those back post double crochets into each treble crochet across. Okay, so I'm going to continue working my round, and then we'll rejoin, and I'm going to show you how to work the next round, round 13 already. So we've worked quite a few rounds together, and we are creating a really nice frame around our square. Okay, so just keep working your round, and we'll rejoin in just a moment. Okay, so I worked my back post double crochets all the way across, and I just wanted to show you before I continue on with my round, just make sure you also do a chain 1 before you start your next corner. Okay, I think I mentioned that before, but it's really important because if you don't, it's gonna sort of draw your square in, and it'll tighten it up too much. Okay, so just make sure you're adding your chain 1 before you start your back post row across and after, okay, before you get to those corners. Okay, and join to close. Okay, now you can just snip your yarn back here and then go ahead and fasten off, and now we're ready for round 13. I had to look at that for a minute. I had to look. I always just off camera here have my written pattern. I had to check out my written pattern because I couldn't believe we were already up to round 13. So let me just show you this square. It looks so pretty, and it's really starting to duplicate our other square here. Okay, so as you can see too, it's the sides are straightening out quite a bit. Okay, so round 13 is super duper easy. My next now I got like a yarn mess here. My next color of the sequence here is the Aran, and all we're going to do for round 13 is just repeat round 12. So super easy. You've already done it. Let's go ahead and tie the new yarn on. I'm going to get you started on this round, and because we just did it, if you need to see it again, you can go ahead and back up the video and kind of review if you need to. Okay, it's especially important that we're going to get those chain 1s before and after each corner. That is going to keep us nice and square. Okay, so go ahead and insert the hook back into that corner space and bring up a loop. We can zoom in a little more. Because we're using all these colors, I have quite a collection of yarn spaghetti happening over here. Okay, so just to get you started, again, we're just repeating round 12. So chain 3, 1, whoops, 2, 3, work 2 double crochets into the corner space, 1 and 2, chain 1, and then 3 double crochet, 1, 2, and 3. Once again, chain 1, and then we're going to start working on these back post double crochets across here, okay? Now, you're going to work them into the back post double crochets of the previous round versus, remember before we worked them into the treble. So they are considerably shorter, but they're still easy to see. So just go back through there and work your back post double crochets. Go from the back over that post, bring the yarn back through, okay? Just doing the exact same thing, excuse me, we did in the previous round, okay? So just continue around, and again, we're going to work our corners the same way. You're just repeating the same thing, okay? So let's keep going, and we'll rejoin at the end of this round, and then we're going to work, as you can see, this red round here. We're going to work that one next. You can see we're almost to the edge here. It's getting really exciting, okay? So just work the next round, repeating the same thing, and then we'll rejoin. Okay, friends, just working that last back post double crochet, chain 1, and then we're going to join 1, 2, 3. So if you hung in with me for this entire square, I thank you. This has been so much fun to crochet. This is much more involved, I would say, than a lot of the projects I normally do. So this has been a lot of fun. I would love to hear what you think about this square in the comments below. All right, we're just fastening off. I finished up the round. Okay, the next round we're going to do, let me just shake these tails down. Now, let me just let you peek at the back of this. It's like completely nuts, but we'll deal with all that later. I like to just keep on going. All right, let's sharpen up those corners. They're going to stick out a little bit more because the last 2 rounds we've been working back post double crochets, and that tends to bring it in, and it sort of helps it, or not helps it, but it sort of forces it to roll backward. The round we're going to do now with this red, it's really going to be a really bold frame for our square, okay? So what we want to do now, let me just back up. So remember I was saying the tail, I like to back up 1 space. Definitely a personal preference. All right, once again, we're going to tie that yarn into the corner like we've been doing. Same thing, but we're going to go back to our friends, the treble crochets now, and work those. And that's going to give it a nice thick frame, as you can see here, okay? So what we want to do now is reinsert the hook back into that same space, and we're going to do start the round the same way we've been doing, okay? So chain 3, 1, 2, 3, work 2 double crochets into that corner space, okay? And then chain 1, and then 3 double crochets, okay, to create that very first corner of the round, okay? So 1, 2, and 3. Next, what we're going to do is go into this chain. Remember this chain 1 space from the round before? We're going to work 3 double crochets into that chain 1 space, okay? So 1, 2, and 3, okay? Just like that. Now, if you need a refresher, what the treble crochet is simply wrapping the yarn around the hook twice, inserting, actually let me pull this last one I did because I'm going to say something else for this next part. Wrap the yarn around the hook 2 times, insert it, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around the hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, yarn around the hook, bring it through the next 2 loops, yarn around the hook, bring it through the last 2 loops, just if you need a refresher. Then what we're going to do, this is super simple, we're just going to work a treble crochet into each stitch all the way across. So we've worked into the spaces, we've worked into the posts. The stitch, when you work into the stitch, you're simply working into that little loop at the top of the post, okay? So see these little loops here? Just going to work right into there. Make sure you're going into 2. As you can see, when I insert my hook, I have 2 yarn loops, okay? And then we're just going to work a treble crochet into each stitch all the way across. And that's going to add a really nice substantial frame to our square because we have a lot going on and I just wanted something nice and simple. This is kind of the first part of our frame. We're going to be adding a single crochet edge to this next, but I wanted to get this nice frame around our square, this nice heavy looking frame. Okay, so just work your treble crochets all the way across, and I'm going to take you through this first side just like we've been doing for all of our rounds, and then we'll kind of move along on our own for the remainder of the round. Okay, so just work your treble crochets in each stitch. Super easy round, and you're going to get lots of height and width on your square. Okay, so remember, wrap yarn around hook twice when doing your trebles. Okay, just working those last few stitches. All the way across. Okay, so here's my last stitch I'm going to work, and then we're going to do the same thing we did at the beginning of this side here. Remember, we did those 3 treble crochets in that chain 1 space. So just do 3 trebles, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, just like that, and then you're going to hop over to that corner space right here and just work your corner the same way we've been doing it. Okay, so 3 double crochet, 1, 2, whoops, 3, chain 1, turning it if needed, and 3 double crochet, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so just work the rest of the round the same way we did. Okay, work your corners the same way, and don't forget, in that chain 1 space between the corner and the stitches across here, just work your 3 treble crochets. Okay, all right, so continue around and we will rejoin towards the end of this round and work on our very last round. It's getting very exciting now. Okay, we're just working that last treble crochet. Remember, we did those 3 in that chain 1 space, and then we're just going to join with a slip stitch in that 3rd chain up to close the round. Okay, so round 14 is complete. Now let's grab our scissors and give our yarn a little snip here. Wrap the yarn around the hook, bring it through. Okay, I just want to show you my handiwork here. It looks stunning. I love the red. It's really coming together nicely. The last round. Can you believe we're on the last round? So once again, if you've been hanging through with me for this whole square and making your square along with me, we have come so far. It just looks absolutely beautiful. Now, you could leave it like this if you want to, but I thought that this nice little edge of this tan just really kind of made everything pop out, okay? So you could leave it as is if you like, or you can join me for this very last round, round 15. Okay, so any corner space, once again, bring that new yarn through, just tie it right on there. And this is so super simple, just a nice little single crochet edge. All right, so reinsert your hook back into that corner space, and what we're going to do this time is, let me zoom in to show you. Chain 1, and then we're going to work 3 single crochets in this corner space, okay? So insert the hook into the corner space, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through both loops. That's all you do. Okay, so that was 1, 2, and 3. Okay, just like that. Now you can turn your piece. Now, the only thing we're going to do for this round is to work a single crochet into every stitch. Okay, So every single stitch, we're going to work a single crochet. Once again, I'm going to guide you through the beginning part, and then we'll kind of finish up the round on our own, okay? So insert the hook, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through both loops, okay? Every single stitch. Now we didn't have any chains or anything like that on our last round, so we don't need to work into spaces or anything fancy. All we're simply doing is working a single crochet into every stitch all the way around, and that'll frame it. Now, if you want your frame to blend a little bit, but you still want like a nice edge, you could also use the red for this round as well if you want a little bit of a different look. If you like just that nice thick red edge, which I think is also very, very pretty, you could just stick with the same color. Now, if you're trying to get the 12 by 12 dimension that I'm doing, my square is 12 inches by 12 inches, and you're not quite making the 12 inches if you maybe crochet a little tighter than I do. I tend to hold my hook and my yarn pretty loose. I don't consider myself, I would say I have about medium tension. I don't really crochet too tight or very loosely. But if you're not quite to the 12 inches by 12 inches, you can repeat this round again if you like, okay? Or you could make this a double crochet if you just want a little bit more height on yours, okay? So once again, I'm just working a single crochet into every single stitch all the way around, but I'm going to show you this corner because we already worked our first corner, but I'm going to show you this corner because we're not tying any yarn in or anything like that, okay? Now see, I'm just working even in those corner stitches. We haven't done that yet. We've just worked into the corner spaces, but we're just working all the way around. Now we're at the corner space, and I want you to work 3 single crochets into that corner space, okay? Other than that, you're just working a single crochet into every stitch, okay? All the way around your square, okay? So, and then see this first stitch, that first post has a loop at the top. You might need to kind of scoot that over a little bit. Sometimes those 3 single crochets can kind of cover up that first stitch, but you'll be able to see it a little bit, and if you need to push things over in order to work your hook in there, feel free to do that. Okay, so just keep working your single crochets all the way around, and when you get to those corner spaces, work 3 single crochets into those corner spaces, okay? So I'm going to continue, and we are going to wrap this square up at the end of my round here. We're going to wrap things up, we're going to weave in ends. We have a couple of different ends that we need to deal with. Some of them have been woven in. Some of our ends are kind of popping through. Some of them need to be woven in with a tapestry needle. Some of them can simply be snipped. So I will show you how to deal with all those ends in just a moment. But keep working your single crochet edging, and we will rejoin in just a moment. Okay, I'm just working that last single crochet of the round, and then once again we're just going to join with a slip stitch. So go into that first, remember that chain 1 that you worked at the beginning of the round? Just go into that chain 1. You might have to wiggle, it might be a little bit snug, and join with a slip stitch. So insert your hook, bring up a loop, then bring that loop through the loop already on your hook, and then our square is complete. And let's go ahead and cut the yarn, and then I'll zoom out a little bit so we can look at everything that we've done. So just fasten off by wrapping yarn around hook and pull it through. Same thing. Okay, so let me scoot all this yarn out of the way. Now you might need to sort of straighten things out a little bit, make those corners nice and sharp. I like to just give them a little tug. You can also block this. Now this is acrylic yarn, but if you kind of hover a steam iron over it, never let it touch because it will melt the yarn. But if you sort of hover some steam over top and then pin it back, you can block that way. And I do have a video on blocking, and I will share that in the information area below. The next thing we're going to do is work on weaving in all of our ends. So you'll need to grab your tapestry needle and just a little pair of scissors for that. Now we have our finished square over here. And you can see the color difference. How pretty, right? We just changed one of the colors and it made quite a difference. Okay, so we have our square. Now flip it over to the back. Now this is the front side. It looks very different from the back. This looks like spaghetti right now. But we're going to flip it over to the back because when we weave in, we want to stay in those back loops to not change anything about the appearance in the front. So as we made our square, you're going to have different types of ends that you're going to encounter. The first type of end is where when you wove it in as you went along, they'll just be tucked in. So you can just go ahead and snip those right off. Any of those that you see where you wove that in as you went along and they're tucked in, like this one here, you can just snip those off. Now you'll see other types of ends where you may have left off and you weren't able to weave it in, such as this one. See how this is a knot and it's sort of exposed? Actually, let me zoom in so you can see what I'm actually talking about here. But I did want to say, because this is a multicolor project, you're going to have lots of ends and lots of colors to work with. So when you're weaving in ends with lots of colors like this, you want to weave in the ends of just the color of the tail, okay? So we're not going to travel into this red section. So we're just going to go in one direction and then we're going to come back in the other direction just to sort of lock that tail into place. And then you can grab your scissors and just trim that off. So you'll have some tails that are tucked in, you'll have some tails that you need to weave in on your own, and so just go through and work through all those. Now this one is obviously needs to be woven in, so you'll just go through and do that. Now you can save all of these little scraps that you end up with. You can save those in a little container or a bag or something and use those for stuffing, like if you make amigurumi or little throw pillows, you can definitely recycle those. If you have kids, they make really nice little things to keep in your craft area. They can be little add-ons for craft projects or art as well. You can make some yarn art. Okay, so just go through and weave in all of your ends. I'm going to go through and do all these now, and then we'll rejoin and I'm going to show you the finished square. So we've gotten all of our ends woven in, so let's kind of clear these out of the way for now. And we can look at our square. It looks great. Again, you might want to block it a little bit and, you know, sharpen up those corners. Let's grab our other square, and we can see them side by side. And they look beautiful. Now you could use this to make a large afghan. You could keep adding rounds to yours. You could do a number of things. You could make line them up in a row and make sort of like a table runner. So their possibilities are endless. Now that is the full tutorial. The back I wanted to show you too. It looks equally interesting. But there is a definite front and a back to this piece. So that is how you crochet the Holiday Spruce 12-inch square. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again.